Welcome back to the channel. Aberdeen get a statement result at Parkhead, and Kilmarnock have added to Philip Clement's woes at Rangers. We did a preview of the Aberdeen game and about how can they challenge for the title and all this, and I honestly think that there's obviously different ways you can look at it. Celtic had a lot of chances and things like that, but to come back from 2-0 down at half time at Celtic Park to get a draw, for me, it cannot be understated how much of a statement that actually is, in terms of I can't remember the last time any team done that. And for as much as everyone talks about the stats and all that position wise, for the game that I've seen and watched at Celtic Park, it didn't feel like there was a massive difference. I know that Celtic did control most of the game. We had chance. We could have, like, on another day, Celtic could have won that game 5-2, right? But also on another day, Aberdeen could have won the game 3-2. So, do you know what I mean? So there's obviously different scenarios that football could go, but the fact of the matter is they got a result. We're sitting here and they didn't lose at Celtic Park, and now the next time we play us, they're going to be at Pittodrie. So you look at it and you go, Aberdeen to me showed that they're not, the idea that they've not played anyone, the idea they don't have the credentials, they've just proved that. They've proved to everybody that they are firmly a team to be, a team that have a threat, that are going to be a threat. Whether that's to the title, I don't know, but most certainly to the top two.
Yeah, I mean, they've proved that they're the real deal, really. Like, we asked the question last week, are they worthy contenders, title challengers? The answer's absolutely. I think that Celtic dominated the game and we should have won it. Like, Aberdeen had... I think what's worrying for me is that Aberdeen had a 10-minute period in the second half where they caused us all sorts of problems and they could have scored 3 goals in that 10-15 minute period. They had the ball in the back of the net, that it get ruled out. So that's kind of concerning for me, that because you can't dominate every game, and there are always going to be these sort of 10-15 minute periods in games where teams are going to have a go. If it's at Celtic Park, it will always usually be right after half-time if the team's still in the game. And at 2-0, a team is in a game. It's always play for the next goal. I think what concerns me is that we looked very weak at the back. Their first goal, Liam Scales, like, why not attack the ball? Why are you chasing the player? Like, the ball, I know people were like, the ball through was great, but it looked like if he just threw himself at the ball, he'd have played it out. And it's like, maybe split decisions. That's the difference between a good player and a great player, is they can make snap decisions and realise what's happening. That's kind of concerning for me. But I think that we absolutely should have won the game with the chances to win the game. And Aberdeen kind of looked exactly like every other team in the SPFL coming to Celtic Park. Other than that 10-minute period, they took their chances. So fair play to them. They're the real deal. But the game at Hampden's going to be interesting. We play them in 2 weeks at Hampden in the League Cup. Hampden's a massive pitch. I'll be interested to see how that game plays out, because it's going to be a very open game, as it always is at Hampden when Celtic play there. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. But you've got to give credit to them. Like, tactically, they stayed strong. They weathered the storm. And they got their draw. And I thought that they were probably decent value for it. Even though, like you're saying, we dominated the game. And I think that, do we sit here and go, when we beat Barcelona 2-1, Barcelona dominated? No, we beat Barcelona 2-1. It doesn't matter. Like, does it matter? No, it doesn't matter. No. Like, they got a result and they'll take so much confidence for that.
Well, how can you not? And we talk about, there's been a lot of talk about the sort of how Aberdeen only had this sort of 10-minute spell, and like you say, looked similar to a lot of different teams in the league. What I would say is that that's kind of what I was expecting, in the sense of, like, if you're Aberdeen or any other team in the league coming to Celtic Park, you're really only going to have a 10-15 minute spell. It's what you do in the 10-15 minute spell. And for me, that's what made them different. Is that obviously, like, how many times you see a team come to Celtic Park where the 10-15 minute spell is, there's not much that happens to them, but they have the ball for a bit. Do you know what I mean? So in that 10-15 minute spell, they were so clinical and took their chances. And I think that is a sign of a team that are a bit of a level above everyone else outside of Celtic. And to have the quality, the tactics to do that is one thing, but the mentality, I think, of not accepting defeat, because I think most teams would have been beat in the tunnel or 2-0 down at Celtic Park, you know what I mean? Like, of going, oh, that's it done now, you know? And then would have maybe got that chance to make it 2-1 and missed. So the fact that they took the chances, the fact that they had the mentality to stay in the game and go, no, we're not done yet, I think is a sign of a team that can compete. And I think to sit here and say that, you know, before we weren't sure, but for me, if they can avoid serious injuries, that's the main thing. If they can keep their team fit, that squad fit, I don't see any reason why they can't challenge for it. You know?
I agree. They don't have strength and depth, of course, and they don't have anywhere near the strength and depth that we've got in a league sense. So if they can keep their team fit, they look good. And you're right, they did have that opportunity to go 2-1. I think the mentality comes down to the guy, the manager. You know, he's definitely done something to that club and that squad. So that sort of like metal and mentality's got to be for him. You're right. They got what they expected. They get pummeled. Like, they get possession wise and shots on target and all that. So, you know, Rodgers with 30 shots on goal. So and it is about what you do with that, and that is the difference between Hibs, Hearts coming to Celtic Park and like a Dundee, Aberdeen this season. So absolutely. I think I get annoyed at the level of intensity that I've seen for Celtic in the last 10 minutes, where it's like, where's this been for the last half an hour? You can't do that. Like, that's unacceptable to me. Like,
we're almost sleepwalking a bit in the second half.
I think what you said, 2-0 up at half time, how many teams come back for 2-0 down at Celtic Park? Very few. So I think some of them have went, this is done, when we've went 2-0 up. And I think that is absolutely out of order, unacceptable. And if anybody's got that attitude, then they should have been getting their absolute arse booted for it for the manager. He looked like he wasn't happy. That's fair enough. But just that, flicking that switch like that, I don't like that.
There was an apathy from us in the second half of like, we're fine here. And then all of a sudden it's 2-each and you're like, oh shit, what's happened here?
And I think it took for their disallowed goal for us to really wake the fuck up.
Yeah. Because you're going, what happened here? And there was definitely when I'm talking about the mentality you're expecting, I thought half time Aberdeen had the attitude of we're still in this, and Celtic had the attitude of this is done. And I think that, like you say, is a major red flag, especially when you're competing against a team that are undefeated and took how many games? Yeah,
and I think honestly, Cal McGregor needs to take a lot of responsibility for that, because I feel like his performance was pretty subpar.
I know it would have been bold to do it, but if I would have taken him off. I thought he was just not doing it. Engels looked okay in times, and I just thought McGregor lacked a bit of energy. He lacked a bit of I think maybe that was his first international break, not playing for Scotland, and maybe he lacked that bit of sharpness.
Perhaps. A lot of them looked a wee bit like that, and like, you know, 3 of the guys that started the game had travelled round the other side of the planet.
Mida was non-existent.
Yeah, I mean that's to be expected. I think you know, like, you sit on a flight for nearly 24 hours.
But then why play him then? Because surely you must have data that helps with that.
Who else is he going to play?
But what I'm saying is, think about this, right? See if you played Forest and dropped Mida and then brought Mida on for the last half hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe
have a bit of common sense in that bit.
Maybe
if the guy's pure travelling for Japan.
Yeah, I don't think either Forrest or Kuhn are particularly handy out on the left-hand side. And again, we're talking about, like, in the last episode about Atlanta, Forrest is just going to cut into that congestion.
Yeah.
And Aberdeen did really well to narrow the pitch and keep it quite tight in the middle of the parts so we couldn't play through it. On Engels' performance, Engels looks absolutely caviar on the ball. His touch is great. His turn, if he's got time to turn, find a person, it looks great. He needs to get stronger. So many times he gets bullied off the ball. So this is a guy this is his sort of progression and development. Needs to be more on the sort of defensive side of the game. But we should have scored in that last 10 minutes. I mean, the amount of chances that we had was unbelievable. They defended for their life. For the Adam Ida goal that got chopped off, I would have, personally, I thought it was a bit of naivety for Alistair Johnston to throw himself into the keeper like that. I think all he had to do was just put himself there and just stand still. See the way he backed in? I think it was goalkeepers are protected, right? It's always a foul. In my opinion, he used his body. He didn't push him. Walsh made the signal. You pushed. Well, he didn't push because he backed in. Goalkeepers are always going to get protected, and I understand that. So that's just the way that the game is, and we need to accept that. But I don't think it was... I think that the thing that made it, where I was like, why did you throw yourself back? I think all he had to do was just stand still and just make his presence there and let Ida come up over the top of him and try and get to the ball. So I was a bit kind of frustrated, but I understand we were really pushing for a goal. We really wanted to win the game, and that's why that happens. And I know that it might be a bit sort of like conspiracy. I think the guy handballed it in the last minute. I think he got away with one. I think they've got away with the fact that we didn't have the angle to show that he just put his hand.
Which is very odd, though, isn't it, to not have the angle for that? I just find that kind of strange how we didn't have the angle for that.
Why do we not have a camera behind the goal?
I know you would think that. You would think that would be... I just assumed that was a thing. Because for me, if it doesn't hit his arm, it goes into the back of the net. So it's a handball. Do you know what I mean? Like it's... There's certain situations where that's harsh, where you go, you can't give a penalty for that, whatever, right? But see when it's on the goal line... If
the ball's going into the back of the net and it hits an arm, it's always a penalty. Right? Unless the arm's in front of the body, you know? And he moved his arm towards it, and people were like, it hit his hip. And you're like, look at the shape of his body. It couldn't have hit his hip.
Yeah.
It couldn't
But it was smart, though.
Super fucking smart. Aye,
because
definitely.
Because he didn't go like this. He didn't extend his arm.
He brung it down just next to his body to make himself slightly bigger and just sort of...
Which was quite clever. But see, at the end of the day, I think there's an element of you earn your luck. And Aberdeen sort of earned the luck that day. They showed a great deal of fight. Like you say, Celtic should have won the game. We could have had it out up at half time. Didn't take the chances. But I think that you need a bit of luck going to Celtic Park. And they got it.
Yeah, if you're going to win anything, you need to ride your luck at times.
Yeah, and we talk about the depth of their squad, and I would argue that there's not much of a difference between the depth of the Aberdeen squad to the depth of the Rangers squad, really.
Oh, no, definitely not. I think on form, Aberdeen are way ahead of Rangers, and I think on actual talent, I think we're splitting hairs. And
just on the thing about Engels needing that bit more physicality, one of the concerns I have about the midfield three of Engels, Atai and McGregor is that Engels feels very similar to Atai in that sense. Atai's great on the ball also. Maybe has some issues off the ball, you know, in terms of that physical sense. And I think that the two of them are almost like that Spider-Man gif. You know, it's like the same player almost. And I think that when you have two players that don't really want to cover that much grass, or in terms of...
Yeah, maybe something that we're missing from Matt O'Reilly is that Matt O'Reilly was really good at, maybe not being like a physical presence, but what he was good at was almost like tracking back and nicking in and sort of stealing the ball and breaking down opposition play, which I don't think we've seen so far for Engels. We see it for Bernardo more, but like we were talking about in the Atalanta episode, we definitely see that for McCowan. So, you know, for the next league game, maybe not for the Champions League game, but for the next league game, I'd love to see Luke McCowan get a start and see how he performs getting in and getting a full 90 minutes. So
absolutely.
At least an hour.
I think it's going to be exciting to see how Aberdeen carry on. Hopefully they can stay injury free and push. And to be honest, I found myself when they scored when they made it 2-1, just thinking to myself, do you know, that's interesting. You're usually I was annoyed that we didn't get the late winner because I wanted that feeling of the late winner, obviously. But I kind of found myself going, when they made it 2 each, I kind of laughed a bit and going, I quite like this, you know. Because I thought,
be careful what you wish for.
I know, but then somebody made a good point. Like, you know, there was Bayern Munich fans saying the exact same thing that I just said there about Bayer Leverkusen. You know, so you need to be careful with these things. I think the fact that they did this at home to Celtic concerns me, because I think they showed enough to show that they could potentially be as at Pittodrie. If they can draw it, the fact of the matter is, if they can draw at Celtic Park, they can win at Pittodrie.
Yeah, aye, absolutely.
And you've got one of the 4 games out the way, and one of them is, you know, you play us 4 times. They've got one of the away games at Celtic Park out the way, and then they play us twice at Pittodrie, and so that, you know.
Yeah, if we hand out a scalping at Hampden, it's a bit of an equaliser. I think, well,
true.
And I think that we've got a very intense sort of 4 weeks, end of November, start of December, where we go to Tynecastle, Rugby Park and Pittodrie within a sort of 4-week period, and that's going to be a big test for Celtic. But like Alex Ferguson would always say, like, titles are won in December and that sort of winter period.
Don't get me wrong, Celtic are absolutely the better team. I just find it quite intriguing.
It is an interesting situation. Rangers went to Rugby Park on Sunday with the opportunity to claw back space on both. I mean, that's a gift. If you're third and the top 2 are playing each other, you want a draw. Obviously, they would want to see us getting beat, but they want a draw was the perfect result for them. An opportunity to get a confidence boost and get back in. And guess what?
Yeah. We should move on to Rangers. They obviously, I think that being able to move the gap to a 3-point means you're moving it to 1 game. Well, it's quite significant, and I always think that in any potential title race, any potential fight for the title, when you've got the chance to close the gap like that, you need to take it. You need to win the game, and I did watch most of the game against Kilmarnock, and I actually felt like I'm not trying to sound biased in here, but I felt like Kilmarnock could have won by more than 1 goal.
I completely agree. I think, and throughout the 90 minutes, they made the better, more clear-cut chances. They looked the more composed team. I felt like Kilmarnock were good value for a 2-0 win on Sunday. They just didn't get it.
Well, I mean, and the thing is as well, this is a team, Kilmarnock, that haven't won a game at home all season. And so you really...
I know, you know.
You've got to be asking...
It's a bad result.
I think the problem because I was trying to figure out what... I watch their games more now because we obviously do these videos and things, and I'm watching the game, and I'm trying to kind of identify what is Philippe Clement trying to do here? What is the style of play? And for me, it's like that kind of old European style of going possession equals control the ball, control the game kind of thing. Possession equals victory, if that makes sense. But one of the things that you learned from somebody like Ange Postecoglou is how much when you're the Celtic or Rangers manager and you're playing against low blocks 90% of the time, fast, forward-thinking, aggressive play with the intent of passing the ball forward constantly is so necessary to break down low blocks. But when you are just going to pass the ball round your back 4, hoping that they're going to press you or hoping the gaps open up, they're just going to sit and watch you do it.
Yeah, it reminds me of kind of what teams were doing to Celtic when Rodgers left and Neil Lennon came in, and they would just sit off you and just watch you pass the ball about. And you know what I mean, when we were like having the likes of near beat on it in the back four, like you're like, oh fucking hell, like we've not got any quality, like really like to penetrate and get beyond or to break down the press. There was the press to be just sit off, just let you have the ball and just be happy with that. Celtic did that to Rangers a wee bit at Celtic Park earlier in the season. They were just quite happy for them to just pass the ball around the back four. And if Philippe Clement wants to take heart for the fact that, oh look, we had great possession, I bet they scored one goal away from home this season.
Yeah,
that's
you have to win.
You do.
You have to win the game.
I think that I'll tell you something that would be very concerning for me if I was a Rangers supporter. Like the Albanian guy is going away and scoring goals for Albania, and the Dutch guy that they've got in loans get 2 assists for the Holland team, and Souttar's getting man of the match for Scotland against Portugal. And then they come back to Rangers and they do nothing.
Yeah.
That's very concerning because that tells you that it's not the players, it's the system, it's the coaching, it's the actual, like you're saying, the lack of identity within this team is just there for everybody to see. And that would be really worrying me.
Yeah. I think I also get the sense that the players don't believe in it. Like the players aren't buying into it. Because you look at if you look at what Jack Butland said after they got beat by Lyon, he said in the post match, he said it's one of those ones where you wish you could redo it because I think with a different approach would get a better result. And you go, that's quite a damning thing to say about the manager's approach. And then, so I'm looking at these players and they don't seem to have the belief in whatever it is that Kilmarnock's trying to do here. I said quite a number of weeks ago that I don't think they don't have a creative midfielder. They don't have an Atati to break down the defence, to sort of be that bit of magic. Tom Lawrence isn't that. So they're actually ending up short in midfield. So anytime the ball goes to the midfield, they're getting grounded out and losing the ball most of the time. Like, because Kilmarnock are just sitting back, so they're overloading them in the midfield. I said in a video a number of weeks ago that the midfield just seems to be more suited to be a 3. If you put like a midfield 3 of Barron and Demonde and maybe somebody like Baskin and a 3 rather than having Lawrence, because it almost feels like Tom Lawrence is, if he doesn't score a goal, he's just doing nothing else.
He fades in and out of games.
He just does.
His highlight reel on YouTube will be unreal, like that type of player. But actually, as like a team player and for 90 minutes, he's very poor. Mm-hmm. Connor Barron as well, like, you're like, really? Is this it? Is this the hope? He doesn't look great, he doesn't even think he looks good at times. So he's a young guy, and I'm not here tearing strips off a young guy but when you're saying that there, Raskin, Barron, I'm just like, we would absolutely tear strips off that team. So from a Rangers perspective, that's really, really worrying. Any quality that they've had over the past decade has just been kind of like overused.
And mismanaged.
Their assets have been really mismanaged. When they should be selling guys, they don't do it. They try and get another season and then the form goes and blah, blah, blah. So it's worrying times for them because they're in a cycle of like, we're winning the league. In the summer, they're buying these players. Oh, this guy's a superstar. We get to October, sack the manager gets sacked. The new guy comes in, he's a genius. You know what I mean? And gets a couple of good results. And then they play Celtic, they get beat. Oh, he's shite, blah, blah, blah. And it's this, they lose the league. And it's this cycle that they're in. So I don't even know, like, it looks like they need to get rid of him. Yeah. But I'm like, who's going to come in? Well, what good is that going to do?
The problem they've got as well is the boards. So many people have left the boards. Who would even, the people that are making the decisions, there's no real reason to believe they're going to make the right decision. So then you go, I feel like they're in a bit of a similar position to like Manchester United in the sense of like, on a lesser scale obviously, but in the sense of like there being this kind of acceptance that Ten Hag should probably be sacked, right? But then going, Man United have had so many managers turn over the past decade since Alex Ferguson that the fans have just been like, no, stick with Ten Hag. and they just want to stick with Ten Hag because they're like, we need to stick with this guy. But the more it goes on, the more you're like, it's not going to work, is it? And I think with Clermont, it's not. He's not explaining things well. When he gets asked questions at press conferences, like, what is your message to fans? How are we going to turn this around? He's like, my message to the fans is, how well we've played the past few weeks and all that. And it's like, you haven't played well all season. You had one good game against Ross County and won 6-0. Other than that...
Yeah, but that game against Ross County had a particularly horrific start to the season, and it was just one of the games that every time you went, every opportunity that you got, just something broke for you and you stick your ball in the back of the net. That will happen. That will always happen, especially when your budget and your players are far superior to the opposition, right? But just like you said, man, the performances, even when they're winning, their fans aren't happy with how they're playing. They're not happy with the personnel. They're not happy with the tactics, the identity, nothing at the club. They're really in a real toxic position. And I think, like Man United, and I think Man United's a good one to draw comparisons with, they need a top-down rebuild. They need a complete overhaul. And I think that if they make the same mistakes that they did after 2012, which is, we're going to get Rangers men in here and Dave King's a good Rangers man. Listen, it's done. Like, see that? We're challenging. We're the quintessential club. It's over. Like, and if you can accept that and done what you should have done in 2012, which is rebuild and no pay Ian Black 30k a week to play in the third division, Lee McCulloch, Chris Boyd coming back for his swan song, Kenny Miller's coming back. Like, it was ridiculous what they did, and they continue to do it. And I think the reason that they do it is because they're arrogant and they think that they're just one or two signings away from winning a league. The club is toxic, top to bottom, and they're like rats off a sinking ship. And they've gave the helm, and it seems to be for the press that Clermont has got full control of the football inside the Rangers right now because they don't have a director of football. They don't, so he's calling all the shots. He's a nut job. Listen to his post-match interviews. The guy is clueless. He's delusional. And it's if I was a Rangers fan, I'd be petrified of what's coming because who's next? What other nugget are they going to give the reins? Because it's a big club, it's a huge club. It's an institution, and who's next for that? And honestly, man, long may it continue with him because we're Celtic fans, right? But being objective, that guy shouldn't be anywhere near that job.
Well, the bit of a rock and a hard place right now because I think it's like, how you just give a guy a contract extension, it would probably cost you millions to sack him. And then you go, from what you just said there about the arrogance and the approach, we look at, I think it's a really good example of why owners of a club maybe shouldn't be fans of a club. Like, there's obviously a lot of talk about how the current people that run Rangers are Rangers, born and bred, are Rangers supporters, are Rangers fans. And I think that almost because of that, they understand what the identity of Rangers has been and they want to try and maintain that. But it's mission impossible. It's not happening. It's not working. And the longer you try and claw into that, the further down the table you're going to go.
Well, I'm no fan of Peter Lawwell, right? Mainly because of my sort of political outlook and, my social sort of class, right? But see, if you were to take an objective, top-down look at this, Rangers have spent with our heart trying to win, and the Lawwells have ran Celtic like a business. Now, at times it's been frustrating because we wanted better players, like the likes of Ronnie Dyla and signing guys like Pookie, and Ambrose, and like, what are we doing here? But if you look at it over a long period of time, 20 years, it's been a kind of perfect business plan. And look at where we are now. And that's because of because football's a business now. It's no run by families and guys that are supporters of clubs. That's done. Like, that's a bygone age. So it's done in like a sort of like business way. And especially when you're in Scotland and you can't just throw £1 billion at a football club. I think that what Celtic have shown them is that they, in a sort of footballing sense and as a club, they need to be more pragmatic. They need to spend wiser. They need to have a vision. They need to, execute that and not waver for that. They keep on going on about, what's the strategy, like the player exchange strategy or something like that they keep talking about, where you buy these guys for £1 million and you sell them for 10. That's what Celtic have done. But see, when we, as fans, didn't want Moussa Dembele to be sold, guess what the club did?
Yeah, so
They fucking sold him. Rangers should have sold Morales. They should have sold Kent. They should have sold Golson after their good seasons. But they didn't, because it's fans at the helm and they're like, well, no, because we want to try and win the league again. Like that type of shit.
Well, that's the problem, is that while Celtic have been long term, Rangers have always been like, this season's the most important, this season's the most important, this season. There's never been any long term thinking, because they can't bear the thought of Celtic winning one season.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's...
Well, the belief was, and we've seen the quote time and time again, all we need to do is win one league and it'll crumble like a pack of cards. Not realising that Celtic had a 10-year head start in a business sense on that club, on that current incarnation. And when they did win the first league, we got Postecoglou, Kyogo, Hatate, Maida, Carter Vickers. You know what I mean?
Well, the thing is, their whole thing from Division 3 to now was to stop 10 in a row. And then after they've stopped 10 in a row, they go, it's just, they've been completely directless. A lack of direction, completely. Yeah. And I think that the point is that they've fallen behind the times from top to bottom. And it's one of those situations where I think the Aberdeen manager has made it worse for Kilmarnock, because he's came in a short space of time and completely turned around Aberdeen for a team that were bottom half of the table to who are now potential title challengers in a very short space of time. And so you go, if he can do that with a lesser budget and lesser players, what is Kilmarnock doing? That makes him look worse, I feel like. Because you look at the way Aberdeen get a draw at Celtic Park, and Rangers fans are like, why can't we do that? Do you know what I mean? So because there's a humbleness about Aberdeen, and there's not that with Rangers. Let me just ask you a question then. Like, I think if they were to sack Kilmarnock, let's say they get beaten Thursday in Europe, and let's say they get beaten by Aberdeen at Pittodrie, which would be huge at this point, to go 9 points behind them. But if they did sack Kilmarnock, who would you bring in? Barry Ferguson? Alex McLeish? Alan McCoist?
Bring back Alan McCoist, that's what I was going to say. I think he might still be in garden leave. I mean, my honest answer is I genuinely don't know. They're in a bit of a predicament. Do they go for a Derek McInnes?
I was just thinking that.
He's not doing great at Kilmarnock, but I think they made a mistake not getting McInnes years ago.
They should have, honestly. I think that where they really went wrong is not back in Gio Van Bronckhorst. That was the guy. See, for the managers they've had in recent years, he was the one that actually had a clue what he was doing. I feel like he got them to a European final where Lundstrom in the midfield scoring away at Dortmund and all that. Like, he got them to a European final, mate. And they lost the European final on
could
penalties.
Be right. It could have been a real missed opportunity.
Gio was like, long term, when you look at the managers, they brought Bale in, no clue. They brought Kilmarnock in, no clue. If they had backed Gio, I'm 100% certain that they would have had a better turnover squad and they'd be in a better place than they are right now. When they sacked him, I thought, if you get a team at a European final and get sacked next season, what chance have you got?
Exactly.
What chance have you got?
Exactly.
So now they're reaping they're reaping the rewards of what they have chosen to do for the past few years. But if you're going to look at it long term, somebody to give a bit of stability, maybe McInnes, is the sort of one guy you could look at and go, you could maybe make them stable and get them back into being, because he did take Aberdeen to being a competitive force for as high as they could be for a number of years. So maybe they need somebody that has that, that knows the Scottish game a bit, to know what Rangers need to do to beat these teams. Because he knows how a team like Kilmarnock, if he knows how Kilmarnock can beat Rangers, he surely would know how Rangers could beat Kilmarnock.
Yeah, they beat Celtic twice last season.
You know what I mean?
So yeah, he's definitely got it in him. I just don't think, again, that hubris, that arrogance, I just don't see Rangers supporters accepting Derek McInnes
No.
as their next manager.
No.
But we're going to need to just wait and see what happens.
But listen, I think it's fair to say that it was a fairly enjoyable football weekend, and Celtic did extend their lead over Rangers, which has been traditionally the top two. So I mean, Aberdeen are doing really well, but 6 point gap now, and busy schedule coming up for both teams, for all the teams, with obviously Celtic having that bit more depth. So it could go from bad to worse pretty quickly for them, but we'll just need to wait to see. I'm sure that we'll have fun watching it though. So that's the main thing. I hope you enjoyed this video. There's be more content coming. Who do you think could be the potential new Rangers manager? Do you think Kilmarnock can pull it back? Please do let us know what you think. And now, how far do you think Aberdeen can go this season? So let us know what you all think about that. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and we'll see you again soon.